Sweet. Hi guys, so welcome. Here we are with Parker, who is an electrician, and I'm going to just introduce him in a second. But before we do that, I just want to run through the topic we're going to cover, which is how to be an electrician. And this topic is very popular. I don't know if you realize, but there's actually thousands of people searching how to be an electrician every month throughout America and the world. So it's like there's lots of people wanting to do it, and there's also a trade shortage. So it's a good opportunity if you're interested to learn how to be an electrician. And Parker here today is going to show us how. So Parker is an experienced electrician. He's been in the trade for many years and has completed electrical work in many different countries, I think up to 20. So let me introduce Parker. How are you going?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing all right. So first off, how many years have you actually been an electrician? Let's start there.
So I started about 9 years ago, and I worked doing wind turbine construction on medium voltage cable splicing, which isn't your regular electrician's work, but it was an interesting introduction towards it. And
So
yeah,
for those that don't know, what's medium voltage?
so medium voltage it's an exceptionally high voltage that's used for distribution, like power grids. Connecting any kind of generation together, creating a grid that you basically feed to a distribution center, which will step down the voltage and provide it to your household. So It's got to get created and sent somewhere. So
you basically help people get power to their house. That's
yeah.
At the end of the day, without you, we wouldn't be able to run this event or even watch Facebook. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. It takes a lot of people. I don't think people realize that. On the topic of becoming an electrician is there's like your standard residential electrician, but there's also, there's linemen, telecommunication, cable splicers like I was doing, or electrical testing. There's really all these different facets of it. And yeah, if people are looking into it, don't just get stuck on one. You can explore multiple facets of it.
Yeah, for sure. So let's go back. So talking to you before or an email, you're like, okay, so you got kicked out of school basically, or something like along the lines. What happened there? Let's start back there.
Essentially, I was just a punk teenager kid and got bored with school. It wasn't for me. I didn't really feel challenged and just kind of got into stupid sorts of stuff and trouble. And eventually had to drop out. I was 16 years old. And my work experience consisted of being a janitor. So I was good at cleaning toilets, and that was about it. So as far as society looks, it wasn't things weren't looking too good for me. So I was able to enroll in a local college, and I felt like it was just the same exact thing as high school. Your standard basic classes, just trying to get your preliminaries in. And I once again left because I was just uninterested in it. And
so what was the topics of like the high school? Just like maths and English, or was it other things?
Yeah, because so what happens is, at least in my high school, there was a lot of budget cuts. So any trade programs like woodworking and stuff like that was cut out.
Any hands-on tool like stuff?
Yeah, anything like that. And so basically, it was like math, English, history, the same stuff you took for years. And I know it's been happening in a lot of schools around us. I talked to some of my coworkers that were like, I didn't have that option in high school if you don't go to vocational school. Some schools have it, but if you write and sign up for it, you might not get in because other people want so many people that want to get in. So it's hard to get your hands on it while you're in school, and it just it diverts your interest.
For sure. All right, cool. So you basically decided school's not for you.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it went to. And it was like, I know I needed to do something. I wasn't happy with where I was. And so I started looking at schools, and it was basically schools with open enrollment. They have some trade schools that had open enrollment because they were trying to get students in. And I found this school called Northeastern Junior College, and I enrolled and saw what they had available. And it was to be a wind technician because the wind technician jobs were arising in the United States with the development of wind turbines and stuff like that. And I always had an interest.
Before that, though, so you tried did you just search on Google? Like, is that how you found like the colleges? Is that how
Yeah.
you're thinking?
Yeah, essentially just Google searched the colleges and went through it and just saw what I could get into with my, I didn't really have any academia, like anything on paper that made me look good to get into a college, essentially. So it was like, hey, open enrollment, click here, and then I saw what was available, and I was like, wow, that'd be really cool to learn how to work on wind turbines. And
Yeah,
the
sure.
catalog said, you work, it's hands-on. They have a laboratory that pretty much that you work in and develop. And yeah, it ended up working out real well. So that's where I decided to go.
Cool. So so you enrolled, you got accepted straight away, or did it have like a test to see if you're smart enough?
No. You pretty much just signed up, and it says, "Congratulations, you're enrolled." And I remember I think we printed it out and put it on the fridge at home. It's like, yeah, way to go!
Check, you're in.
yeah, pretty much. So that sealed the deal. But it was also,
but was that an actual? So that wasn't an apprenticeship, though.
No, that wasn't it.
What was that classed as?
It was so it was for an associate's degree in wind energy technology. Okay. So you take your basic courses still for your college credits, but then also it's you work at the shop and do like the lab and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got accepted into that. Then what happened?
So I went out there and I pretty much drove across the country because it was in Colorado. I was in New Jersey at the time. And I remember thinking, what am I doing? Because I packed all my stuff in my car and drove out. And I was like, I really hope this is the right decision, because if it doesn't work out, I'm going to be in the middle of somewhere else and not really know where to go. But it ended up working out really well. When I first got there, I thought that I wasn't intelligent, and I believed that. And then when we started working on hands-on stuff, basically I had an instructor, James Lenzen, and he'd show you, he'd give you a briefing on what you're learning that day. And next thing, you'd just go in the lab and build it, do like electrical circuit troubleshooting, reading schematics and stuff like that. And
so it was straight into doing the stuff. Like in Australia, I did a kind of a pre-apprenticeship, and it was all the first 3 months was like safety. You got to do this safely. You got to all this paperwork. What happens if this person dies? Here's something, if you do something wrong, you die. So no, they didn't go into any safety for you?
No, it was actually super safety oriented, just like you were saying. I think we had 2 classes to begin with just on safety.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And we wouldn't just go and work on live circuits, but as far as just started building things. And I know we were discussing before, it was the aha moment was when I got my first report card, and, I'm working with my hands and learning tools, and they did it was cool. They did stuff like safety wise. We did like tower rescue simulation. So you'd go up in like in a ladder with your harness on, and then they teach you how to like train and rescue people. So it was really cool because you're not going to really learn that anywhere else, that kind of simulation. And so the aha moment was, getting my report card and getting A's, and I'm like, wow, maybe there is something that's right for me.
So you've gone from like school getting, I don't know, C's, D's or whatever, like the low end, to like, oh, I got an A, holy shit.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, maybe I am on the right path. Yeah. And it was great. It was a great experience, and just learned a whole bunch, and it was able to excel.
Okay, cool. So that course was for how long?
It was for 2 years.
Okay, where how does that fit into the apprenticeship? Like, how does that like lead into the apprenticeship? What's that part?
So it was interesting. I didn't start an apprenticeship until about I'd say five years ago, because I got into the wind energy field. I was actually hired doing quality control for just the oversight of the distribution aspect of it. I wasn't even working with tools at that point. I had gotten an internship and just learning the construction part of it. And
so that's wind. I'm just trying to picture it. So it was like wind turbine for 2 years.
Yeah.
Like that sort of stuff. And then the next step was like this construction.
Yeah. Yeah. Essentially. Yeah. I got an internship doing quality control, watching over construction. And I was told during the internship that the company liked me a lot. I was putting in a ton of hours because I worked over my summer break, and they said they would hire me part-time during school and then hire me on full-time when I graduated. So I was like, awesome, a career is set, but things changed, and 2 months before I graduated, they laid me off.
Of course.
Yeah, yeah, and they started like, it's nothing on your performance, it's just a budget issue, and yeah, so I basically was left with 2 months to find a job before graduation,
And
and
if you didn't have a job, you couldn't graduate. Is that how it works?
you needed an internship. So if I was lucky, I had my internship that summer before I graduated, so
Okay.
I was able to graduate, but I didn't have the time that everyone else had because I thought I had a career already set out. So everyone else was getting jobs and had applied and put their resumes out. And then it was like, I think less than a couple months before I graduated, and there I was back to square one.
Okay.
So yeah, that was rough. And I actually graduated, and I pretty much gave up. I got a job locally.
So you graduated. What was the actual degree they gave you? Like, what did like?
Yeah, this associates in the applied science of wind energy.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Like, and they're all applicable like college credits. I was planning on actually going to school, back to school after that, and I could apply the credits towards a bachelor's degree.
Yep.
But so I ended up just taking a job. I gave up after I graduated and got a job just pulling weeds, which I just was disappointed in myself.
So from there, did you still want to be an electrician, or you just like, I've given up completely?
Yeah, I did, and I hustled, and I applied for apprenticeships, and the location was in downtown Denver, Colorado, which is a fairly expensive place to live now. And the problem I originally had that turned me off of it was I would get the apprenticeships. I would go in the interview, and I interview well, and they'd be like, "Okay, can you start at $10 an hour and move down to downtown Denver?" And it's just not a wage that you can move to that city and survive.
Let's just stop there for a second. What were the interviews like for you? Like, going through them, what type of questions, or what was it like in the interviews?
So what they always asked me was, the first thing they would ask me is, tell us what our company does. And so
tell me about
yeah. And so what I would do is I would look up their website on the front page, and I would just memorize everything, quotes, slogans, and I would write it down. And then when I would go into the interview, you can have like a little notepad in front of you and stuff like that. And I would just reiterate the stuff that was on their front page. And so they're like, wow, you really do your homework. And they're immediately right off the bat, your first impression's great. And so I did that. Yeah, every time, and it worked. They're like, wow, this guy does his homework, but it was just simply looking at their webpage and what they do. And so I would get them, but the starting wage, I just couldn't live. I just couldn't make it work living there at that wage. So
yeah, the main obstacle was like you had to move locations in order to get the job, but what they paid you wasn't really what you could survive on.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. I've had the same thing where to get my apprenticeship, I had to move, and I moved into a place with like five, 6, 7 blokes, all in this like 4-bedroom house. It was a nut house.
Yeah.
Living on the cheap, as you do.
Yeah. I've been there. And so I got a phone call from a gentleman that I worked with on the construction project. His name's Danny Easterbrooks. And he became a foreman of a construction crew and asked me if I would go and work for the company in Texas. And the money they offered me was more than I'd ever made at the time. And there wasn't an apprenticeship though. It was just I pretty much went
so you're like a trade assistant.
Yeah, there was no training pretty much. It was a really small company, and it was their first project doing like the terminations, the splicing that I mentioned of this cable.
Okay.
And so he's like, hey, I met you. You're a smart guy. I liked you. We could really use your help. And I was like, yeah, okay. And once again, found myself driving across the country into, not knowing what I was going to do. But
we're driving blind for the job.
Yeah, pretty much. I had my last paycheck, and it was just this minuscule amount of money, and I had to drive to Texas. I could make it to Texas, but I didn't have money for a hotel, an apartment, or anything. And so there's this guy, he was awesome. His name was Billy. And he's like, yeah, you can just sleep on my floor until you get a few paychecks in. So yeah, I literally slept in these guys' living room that I didn't even know while I started working. Well, yeah, I mean, it's better than sleeping outside. It was really nice of them. It's like, hey, hey kid, you could crash out on the floor, so.
No, for sure. So
Yeah.
it also takes some, like, I don't know, some kind people to help people. Yeah, if you're in a better position, pay it forward. Yeah, like I bet you he may have been in a situation where he needed help and someone helped him. So definitely good to see.
Yeah, it's like that's kind of just been the whole journey in my career too. It's just like these right people pointing you in the right direction, and just not burning bridges has been the biggest deal that I've had. I just make sure that no matter my relationship with anybody, I don't burn relationships. And I've gotten calls from people that I didn't like working with in particular, but asking me if I wanted to go work where they're working. It's like, I'm okay. I don't need to, but thanks for the heads up. Like, you just never know who's going to pick up the phone and call you for an opportunity.
Yeah, totally. So connections, definitely a huge part of kind of moving forward in the electrical trade in general. Like, electricians know electricians, or people, you're in the same network, and if there's a job, everyone can kind of touch base and point you like, there's work over there, there's work over there. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I know a lot of the older gentlemen that I worked with, it used to be different 30 or 40 years ago. I asked them, what were your problems getting into an apprenticeship? And they're like, I just walked in. That's what most of them said. And it's not like that anymore. And then they also have the problem is they've never had to interview for jobs usually, because they would just ask the guys they're working with, hey, where's the next job at? Or, where there's any work. And so, yeah, my one foreman, he was telling me, he's like, I had to interview for the job I have now. And he's like, I did horrible. He's like, I've never had to sit in front of people and talk about it, because it's pretty much, like you said, just networking and knowing where these people are and finding the right fishing holes, and just having the confidence to go up and say, hey, I want to be an electrician. Like, what's it going to take? And if it was me and someone came up and asked me that, I mean, I'd give them a chance, or try to get to know them and help them.
It shows they've got the initiative. Yeah? It shows you've got drive. So if you want something, you got to be willing to step up and have confidence in yourself to take it. Versus like, I want the thing, but I'm not going to do anything to get the thing.
Yeah. And it's crazy how many, I've written in an article how, like I said, the fishing holes, it's like you'll see electricians vans everywhere. You'll see your utility company. You see construction projects everywhere. And it's like, it might sound crazy, but stop by and just say, hey, what would it take to get a job as an apprentice or starting that? And I guarantee you, if you ask 10 people anywhere you see, I mean, electrical supply houses, there's always electricians there. You can go on the internet in your local state or jurisdiction, and there's registered electrical contractors. Call them. Yeah. I bet you if you call 10 of them, there's definitely a decent human being that's worth, is willing to sit down with you and talk to you about something.
Or at least point you in the right direction. Like, they may not have the, an opening or whatever, but they could at least go, hey, go over this way, go over that way, to get you kind of moving in that direction. So with you still weren't the apprentice. So you got the trade, you got the job sleeping on the floor essentially.
Yeah.
And then, so from there, what happened?
Yeah. So it was a great experience. It was crazy because, we worked 13 days in a row, like 90, 95-hour work weeks. And it was out in Texas in the sun. Because, it was a small company, and I just wanted to work hard. I was young. I was excited for the money I was making. And, I was relentlessly working out there. It was pretty crazy. Lots of rattlesnakes and black widows. Yeah, I'm sure not like what you guys have over there, but it was interesting. But there was a gentleman, he was the electrical manager for the main contractor there. His name was Dean. And he taught me a lot. He taught me how to do electrical testing on all the circuits, like before you energize stuff.
So basically you're getting hands-on experience now before you're getting your apprenticeship.
Yeah. And with it's crazy because, so like I just said, just meeting the right person, I clicked with this guy that was the electrical manager. And he taught me how to do like acceptance testing and commissioning testing and all these high voltage components. What we were installing. Yeah. And now to this day, the work that I do, I'm one of the only people that is able to do it in my company. and it's allowed me more hours, more work. And it's pretty much just because I asked this guy, I met him, and I was like, how do I do this? You know, I was like, what is this equipment? Yeah. And he's like, you really want to learn? And he showed me, and I was able to do a good job. And yeah, never take every opportunity for training that you can get. Absolutely. And that's just paid multiple exponentially.
Like it's essentially on the job training, which is what the apprenticeship is, but you're taking the initiative to actually learn before you get the thing, because that's like stacking your experience in your favor.
Yeah. Yeah. And so unfortunately, like this experience, because it was for the utility, a lot of American government entities will not accept those hours as electrician hours, even though it's working. It's been difficult. So
Okay.
So yeah, so what ended up happening was I got laid off, and the company just didn't bid any more work. All of us.
This is the second layoff?
This is the second one.
Okay.
Yeah. Lots of layoffs. I mean, that's the nature of it. And we can get into that later, but yeah, second layoff. And basically I had to move back in with my parents because I didn't have a job. And again, I'm in a trough, you know. I'm like, how did I just get all this experience and education, and I'm back at my parents' house? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that feeling isn't the best feeling. And, but what happened, I just called, so I waited a few months talking to the guys I was working with, and nobody heard anything, my boss. And I ended up calling the gentleman, Dean, that I told you was the electrical manager. And he got me a job, and it was just networking. He knew a guy in the industry that needed some help, but it was back doing the management quality control side of things.
So on that though, were they so you use your connections to get the job, but were they advertising for the job at all? Do you know?
No, they weren't. They are hurting so bad for experienced people that once somebody pops up, and if you call the right person, it's crazy, because all of these interviews I've been hired on the spot. And this one too, they flew me out from New Jersey at my parents' house to Oklahoma, and basically were like, oh, you have experience doing this? Okay, you're hired. And I was like, wow, yeah. But that was tough because I don't particularly like management myself. I like working with tools and everything like that. And it was it was a huge company. It was with RES, which is the largest renewable energy contractor in, I think, North America. Okay. And so they're a huge company. And as far as like attention to personal development, you just don't really have that. So I like working with tools, and I really wanted to get an apprenticeship and start working towards being an electrician, because once you get your license, it's gold. As far as a career goes, I mean, worse things can happen, but I mean, you can always get a job working as an electrician if you're willing to at least like move around and stuff like that. You always have a decent paying career. So
for sure, like same in Australia. As long as you have that ticket, you're sweet. Like I've had mates who've gone away for like a year or two, come back within like 5 days, they've got a job. It's just like, okay, you're in. Yeah,
exactly. Like if you do it right, like with those layoffs, like I always have an emergency account if I'm working a lot, making money, that I allocate 6 months of expenses towards. And it's like, if I get laid off, then it's like, you know, I don't necessarily have to jump right back into work. I can take time off and have a vacation or go somewhere I wanted to see and travel. And it's if you do it right and allocate your money and plan ahead accordingly, it can really be an incredible lifestyle that you can establish. And I think a lot of people don't realize that either. You can really, with the time off that's available, and then a lot of the hours that you work in a short time, you can really make it into a pretty great lifestyle. That's why I like it so much.
If you plan ahead though, like many people, like in Australia, you can go work up north and you can earn like, you know, heaps of money, but you can also go spend heaps of money just as easily.
Yeah, I've worked with the guy that we were working, and he bought like a brand new Dodge Hemi Charger and a Dodge truck, and I'm like, what do you need both of those for? And he's like, yeah, the Charger's not good in snow. And then it was like okay, you can probably just get by paying for that now. And then I remember when layoff came, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna lose my cars and everything. And it's like, yeah, you just got to expect that it's coming, and then be able to adjust yourself towards the situation. So Yeah. If you're smart enough to plan in advance, you can work it to your favor. But yeah, unfortunately, like you said, a lot of people don't.
I think it's like there's a statistic of like 80% of Americans don't have like savings. So it's like,
Yeah.
not the common thing. But that's cool. So going back to, so you're at this and what was the company name?
RES.
RES. So you're at
Yeah.
RES, and right at this point where we are, you don't have an apprenticeship. You're still,
No. Yeah.
you're there trying to get one.
Trying to get one. Yeah. So I realized that this is what I want to do. I want to work with my tools. I've got experience. And I eventually got sent up to Washington State, which is where I reside now, working for the company who I'm with. And just so happened that so I really wanted to get a job working overseas and or get into an apprenticeship program. And I was always asking myself this entire time, I was asking myself the question, like, how can I do it? I wasn't actually pursuing it, but I was like, I knew what I wanted to get, become an electrician or get a job that allows me to work overseas and travel. And so what eventually happened was I met the owner of my company now. He went on the site of the job and was just talking to me. And he's like, my company operates in countries all over the world. And yeah, we're electricians. And I took his business card and it was pretty interesting. So I was supposed to leave the job in Washington State and go back to Texas. And I really didn't want to go. I wasn't enjoying the work I was doing at all. And so I fiddled with this guy's business card like 2 days before I had to travel to Texas. And I had all my belongings packed in my car. And so first I emailed him and he didn't respond. And I called him and we were talking and he's like, well, are you a journeyman electrician? Because he's like, that's what we need. And I was like, no. And I thought it was over by then. I was like, man, this is it. But I asked him the question and I was like, do you offer apprenticeships? And he's like, we actually are thinking about starting an apprentice program here. He said, how about you come in for an interview? And so I feel like if I didn't ask him, how about an apprenticeship? It would have just been, okay, goodbye.
The topic wouldn't have come up.
Yeah. So it was crazy. And I went into the interview with all my belongings in my car. If I didn't get hired, I was just going to drive to Texas. Like it was really out in a limb. So and the interview went well. Like I said, I read about the company and what they did, and one of their questions was, we do a lot of work in West Africa, and we do some work in some rough areas. And they're like, well, how do you feel about working long hours in the heat and stuff like that? And I was like, well, I just did that in Texas during the summer. I worked crazy hours. And they're like, pretty much just had you always had to have like an example. They're like, well, give us an example of this. And I guess I was just
open-ended questions. It's like, give me a situation where you've done this thing and tell me about it now.
Yeah. And it's tough because you'll sit there and you'll be like, but what I learned is skill is just like, do you mind if we come back to that question? Mm-hmm. And they're not going to bother you with it. And so it'll give you time to kind of sit on it, like while they're talking, or at least let your brain process something. But yeah, they're like, tell me a problem you've encountered and how you solved it. And it's like, yeah, you got like 3,000 things that hit your mind. And it's like, can I hit the next button?
Especially under pressure. That's, I think, one of the reasons why they ask, to see how you actually cope under pressure, and maybe in the electrical trade even more so, because if you're under pressure to do the job, you don't want to make a mistake because it could kill you. So
yeah, absolutely, it's dangerous.
So with that interview, you ended up getting it just then, or were like, okay, tell me I've got it, or I'm out of here?
No, they told me. So they actually had me take a test, and they had me take a test there, and it's basically told me to draw out this schematic of a circuit, right? But it doesn't say if it's AC or DC. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, this is either a trick, and they want me just to come down there and tell them, but I don't want to do that and like not have anything drawn. I'm like, are they just going to think that I'm lazy if I'm just like, hey, this isn't telling me what it is? So I'm like, I'm sitting up there, and I drew both AC and DC, and I just stood up there the whole time, just making sure it's perfect because I was all nervous. And so I think it was like an hour went by, and they said they wanted to come up, but they're like, baby, he's really so I was upstairs taking the test, and they were downstairs, and so they're sitting and waiting for me, and they're like, should we go up there and get him? And they're like, no, he's probably just focused to keep working on it. And I'm like, but yeah, so I went there and I told them, it was like, it didn't say AC or DC. So I did both of them. And they were like, no one's ever figured that out. They just draw something. I'm like, really? Like, no one's sat there and like, they're like, yeah, good job. And I'm like, I mean, that's something everybody should notice. It's a little concern.
Where did you learn AC and DC? Where did you pick that up from? Yeah.
At the wind energy program I went to. It was it's very electrical based as far as like industrial electricity and stuff like that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I learned. It really paid off there. Yeah.
So paying attention back then definitely helped you out.
Yeah. Yeah. Even like, so we had classes on PLCs and stuff like that. And so we've had a lot of work where we had to install PLCs, and none of the older generation that I work with are familiar with that stuff as far as computers and ladder logic. And that's also just knowing that by itself has allowed me to have hours of overtime or go to other jobs because they need me to be able to install it and make sure it works. So yeah, you'll never know like what tidbits you learn in school or anything that'll pay off. Yeah, just being a sponge is the best thing you can do.
Learning as much as possible. Okay, so you finished the exam, walked down, and they're like blown away that you did both. And then what happened?
Yeah, so then they hired me. And I was like, okay, so this is definite. This is for sure. Like, gave me the contract on the spot to sign. I was like, okay, because everything I own's in my car. I got to go find a place to rent now. So yeah, moved in and started working on. We started half the company works abroad, working on military bases and embassies, and the other half of the company works on power generation at like hydroelectric dams or nuclear facilities, gas plants and stuff like that. So yeah, I started off doing a lot of that stuff, and yeah, it was very interesting.
Can you see that? Someone just said hello, but I can't read your name, but hello.
Yeah. How's it going?
Cool. Yeah, so if people watching, feel free to say hello and ask any questions if you've got any, and we'll see if we can answer them. If not, we'll get back to you. But anyway, so you got this apprenticeship. So you start that day?
Yeah, the day after, I believe. Or it might have been, I think it was a Friday, and it might have been that Monday I came in and started. And yeah, it was a legitimate program. I got my hours in and classes provided and a ton of on-the-job training. It was great.
Cool. And then so that's your apprenticeship is 5 years, or how does it work?
This one was 3.
Okay.
But so what was cool is I was in Washington State, and their rates for electricians are incredibly high. So I went in there earning an apprenticeship wage higher than a wage that I've ever made before in my career. I actually got a giant raise from it because I remember actually thinking if they offered me this job, I was like, it's probably not going to be enough for me to live off of because of what it was prior and from my prior experiences. And they're like, no, the rates here are really high. This is what we're offering you. Is that okay? And I was like, oh, like I almost choked up. I was like, yeah, of course. Yeah, they're like, we can give you less. So yeah, that worked out. And so the great thing is in the States, if you go to the right places, there are some very high paying apprenticeships now because the rates have gotten so high. However, they are very competitive.
Yeah. Like in Australia, for example, I know the rates were like starting when I did it at $7 an hour. So it was like quite low. I don't know I know it's gone up maybe 10 now, but it's still not that much.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to get by, but I mean, if you can live at home, like with family or something, and understand you're going to get paid to learn and go to school, that's
the big difference. You go to university and you get debt. You get you pile on the debt. You're still at home, not earning money. Whereas you get in the apprenticeship, you're earning money and you're not getting into debt, and you're getting paid hands-on training on a skill that you can use for life. It's like huge.
Yeah. That's the way to go, and I can't even I can't recommend it enough. And it's also you get hands-on. You're not in an office. You can work outdoors. And then another interesting part of it is what I've been looking into is like there's the threat of AI, artificial intelligence to job markets, And the last jobs to be taken, they predict, which who knows what will happen, is actually electricians and plumbers because of the variables involved in the job. So, I mean, it might sound crazy, but if you're starting now, you really want to think 30 years ahead. This job of the trades will still be here. So it's a steady job. There's a lot of things being replaced by AI. I know that it makes like they made artificial intelligence that writes its own software. So
it gets smarter and smarter and smarter.
Yeah, which eventually could put software engineers and writers out of business because they've created something that can write itself. And but that's anything related with computers. Yeah, it's insane. Like, I'm afraid to see what happens in a few years. But I mean, if as an electrician, I'm not worried about my job.
Yeah, there's plenty of electrical work. I mean, the statistics were something like, what was it, 60,000 shortage of electrical jobs in 2020. So like, you know, we're there, and that's the trade shortage. Like, it's a matter of getting your apprenticeship now, starting as soon as you can, making those connections, finding someone who's willing to take you on, or if not take you on as an apprentice, getting the experience of doing the electrical work as a TA or like just a helper to build that expertise. So when you do have a test or an exam in your apprenticeship, you can actually go, oh, I know how to do that, or I know what the hell they're talking about. So getting that knowledge is a big part of it. So then you've taken this apprenticeship on, you're getting paid well, you're learning, you're traveling. What else is happening?
Yeah, so I'm getting to travel, and this is where it really gets interesting for me, is going to other parts of the world where, like, for example, I'm in Liberia right now, and I believe their electrical grid was only installed 11 or 12 years ago. So they have not had electricity. And so I'm going to these places where there's no electrical code, there's no standard, there's no training, no classrooms, and the installs are like so dangerous. I mean, the stuff you see on like Electrical Nightmares or whatever the sites are, I mean, this is like a daily routine, and just trying to fix them and provide, you got to provide temporary power to shut down whatever you're fixing, and then be able to swap it out and make it compatible with what was there.
Yeah.
And I'm just learning, it makes you learn at a hyper accelerated pace.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's basically learning to fix anything, and it's not just like being electrically skilled, but like mechanically. I have to do a lot of like fabrication and stuff like that. And there's other trades that start coming into play because of all the facets of problems that you encounter.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. And so the apprenticeship was 3 years, and you spent 3 years traveling?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's like pretty cool for an apprentice. Traveling around, getting to see the world and learning and getting paid well. That's awesome. And then, so what's involved in qualifying to be the electrician?
Yeah. So essentially they're looking for, like you said, the initiative, and you're looking for, a lot of them want like tool experience, like just any kind of, like, do you work on cars? Have you worked on houses and stuff like that? And one problem I had is when I started the apprenticeship, I am not the most tool savvy person there is. I didn't grow up working on cars or anything. And they would always say, you need to be more mechanically inclined. You need to get better at it faster. And I'm like, well, how do I do that? And there wasn't really an answer. So what I actually started doing a little bit was I volunteered for Habitat for Humanity on the weekends. And basically it's a organization where they build houses for people that can't afford them, and it's a community service deal. So you go there and you help people build a house for people in need. And so I had no idea how to build houses or anything, but it got me working with tools, and it wasn't an environment where it was money driven. So it was experienced people who were retired, and they see I'm a young guy that just wants to learn and help. Perfect. And they're like, yeah, it's perfect. It's the perfect environment. And that's another thing you can put on your resume if you're trying to get in, is I volunteered for, Habitat for Humanity. And
with them, they probably want people they need hands. Like,
yeah, exactly. So it's a win-win for everybody, and it looks great on your resume. It's like, wow, this guy goes out and does community service and he wants to learn, so he's going out and helping and learning that way, and it's a huge plus. I can't recommend doing that enough. So
that's definitely something I didn't consider when I was trying to get my apprenticeship. I didn't see that's a good angle to come from. Like I didn't even know we have that. It probably do, but it's definitely a good angle to come from. So if you're looking to get that extra edge on the other guys, you can just work for free. That's something that's, we don't always have to get paid. You need to get the experience and then you will get paid.
Yeah. And then also the networking that opportunities that you will get on there. Cause I would meet people, I would go there when I was laid off from work and they'd be like, oh, well, are you looking for work? Because I worked for a construction company or I used to work for this. A lot of them are retired tradesmen that are there just because they have time and they have a skill. So it's like, if you're having trouble getting your apprenticeship, well, here, you might be getting a job in construction because you're working with these guys that have done it for years. So it's also a huge networking opportunity as well.
Cool. That's another good tip there. That's awesome. Okay. Yeah. So doing these trades, so you've done these like community service house building, which is like also there's different types of electrical fields. So just to have experience in the housing industry, like I did my apprenticeship in boat building. So like having that house, we had to actually have a shed where we like learned how to do houses. But to get that experience where you're on your own, learning off these other guys, perfect.
Awesome. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So with that, do you have a capstone? What's your capstone like? Or in Australia, we call it a capstone, which is like your final exam where you go to school for 3 days and they give you like all these tests and stuff. Do you have something like that over there?
Yeah, so it depends. So I took my test with the Union Hall, which is so I'm certified through the union, and then there's also so basically you can work out of the union through any of the states that the union's located in, or you take your state.
The union controls electrical license. Is that how it works?
No, it's so the state recognizes the certification from the Union Hall, but you also have to get your state license. And it used to be that if you got your one state license, it reciprocates all over to other states, and now they're becoming isolated. So like you might have a license in one state, but 49 others won't recognize it. So you'd have to go over to that state and test. So yes, if you're in the union, it helps navigate that. They'll get you all your you give them all your your resume and all this stuff and your hours and your classes, and they'll get you into a test easier than just having to do it on your own. It can be a real headache. I've tried it, and they don't, like I said, they don't recognize the wind farm hours, even though it's working with electricity. And it's just a real political.
So the test, like to kind of qualify as an electrician, you need to have like a certain amount of hours on the tools in a certain field.
Yeah.
And then it's like, do you have to do like wire up a switchboard or something that they examine? Or
no, I just had to take it was pretty much 100 question open-ended answer test, which was just an extreme brain. Yeah,
100 questions. That's a lot.
Yeah, there's no multiple choice. I was hoping for it because when there's multiple choice, it's like, all right, it's either A or B. Like 50% chance of nailing this one. There was other ones, and it's like, man, can you even just give me a hint here? Like it's so
tough.
Yeah, and it's got to be because there's a lot of people. I mean, at least for us, in the States, and of course where you're at in Australia, it's like at least people are qualified, and the installations are a lot less dangerous because of the high standard that's expected. Where I'm working, people take showers and get electrocuted because they have no idea what they're doing, and people don't realize that. It's like, well, why is it like having an electrician so expensive? It's like you're manipulating this energy that can kill you. It's like, and I'm keeping it safe in your house and in compliance so it doesn't start fires. Like
how much is your life or your house worth? Like
yeah, and it's crazy because as far as trades go, it's just the amount of intellect that you need to require to know what's going on with everything. As far as like coding, I mean, there's theory, there's tool work, craftsmanship, planning. You can go into pricing and bidding and all this stuff. And meanwhile, all this stuff when it's energized can kill you if you don't know what you're doing. It's pretty insane. And I think that the rush of that kind of is why I like it too. It's like, this is some dangerous stuff.
A bit bit of a thrill.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So any tips for studying for these 100 questions, or is there any like pointers you can give out there?
Yeah. So first, I would do is find somebody else who has taken it. That's always the best deal. Is what were your problems? Were there some things that you came across? And that's where I always get a lot of good answers. I always reviewed my study material and just like I had past practice. They have practice books, practice test books, and those always help. And there's some tricks to it. Like make sure you study weeks prior. Don't procrastinate and do it till the night before, because every night your brain sleeps on it. It refreshes and it gets stored, and it's good just to familiarize yourself with it. And then you're not forcing yourself to cram it. Give yourself an hour a day, plan for it. And I mean, the good thing is if you go in and if you do fail, you can always retake it. And at least now you know what questions to expect.
So you get like 3 strikes and you'll never become an electrician again, or how many? Is that how they work?
That's how it is with where I'm at. And I think some of the states are like that. But you can go to another state and get a license. I don't know. Yeah, it'll get pretty complicated. But if you see a test and you see the questions and you don't go and do the homework on the ones you didn't understand, I mean, that's kind of on you. I can understand the first one. There's stuff you didn't expect. But the second one, you've seen it. You know what to remember after that. So.
Okay, sweet. So, and then finishing your trade, then it opened up the, opportunities for you to do other things, or like when you got qualified, what happened?
Yeah, well, when I got qualified, I mean, it was just, it's kind of like the gates open because there's work everywhere. And I always have this in the back of my head is like, if I don't like what I'm doing for whatever reason it may be, I mean, I still love doing this job because I'm traveling, I enjoy it. But if I ever wanted to start a family and settle down somewhere, I know that I have an opportunity to do that whenever I want. Or now if I want to keep traveling, I can, or check out other states to work in. It's just the versatility it gives you once you get that ticket and everything. It's just really empowering. It's like, no matter what happens.
You've got that ticket to fall back on, worst case scenario, which no more shitty wages.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've earned it and I've deserved it. And it's the greatest feeling in the world, and you can get paid to work towards it. I mean, you really can't beat that. Yeah, you get paid to learn and work towards it, and it's a great craft.
No, I definitely agree, and it's like plumbers versus electricians in pay scale. Like, who's going to get the higher pay?
Yeah.
Cool. So I'll just we can end kind of the summary there, but you've got your trade. What are you trying to do now? Like, you're trying to help other potential people become electricians, or what's your story with that?
Yeah. So now I started my own website. It's called thetradesguy.com. And I'm trying to help people find apprenticeships or get into trade schools, find these jobs and become tradesmen or electricians, plumbers, whatever it is. But to be able to take that next step, if you don't know what to do with your life and you're having trouble, I want to be able to guide people and help them. Like I've had my mentors, Jim Lenzen when I was in trade school, and Dean on the jobs. And these people, because of them, I was able to succeed and excel because someone was there. So I want to be that person that's there for them to guide them along the way and be like, well, maybe look around here or check this out, or if you're having trouble with your tests or interview skills, help get them better, give you tips on, excelling. Because if I'm capable of getting a job that pays excellent and travel the world, there's no reason anyone else shouldn't either. It's a great field and it's very versatile. And that's what I want to do is help people get that chance.
So it's also helpful to have someone who's been through that versus trying to figure it all out on your own. If you have someone guide you, it's a helping hand that saves you years, essentially. If you don't know, you're looking over this direction, that person, no, actually jobs are here, or you have to talk to this person, that saves you so much time and you can kind of get the trade quicker. So what I want to do is for people who see this video, this interview, is if they want I haven't even talked to you about this, but anyway, what I want to do is put together kind of a framework for people to become electricians. So how to become an electrician, the framework we're going to create where they can get, and it's like kind of a step-by-step guide of the top tricks we've covered here, and some other things we can go through, where they can, instead of like trying to find out on their own, the idea is they get a direction. So it's like a checklist of things that people can do to help better their chances to get into the trade. So if people are interested in that, they can comment like yes in the comments, and we'll get back to them once we've made this framework for them. And so it's something a bit extra I wanted to just offer in case anybody's interested. Yeah, they can do that. Yeah, and then anyone else you'd recommend interviewing about their electrical trade or anything along the lines of that?
Yeah, there's a gentleman. His name is Chad Flynn, and he's got a YouTube channel. It's called the Electric Academy, and it's awesome. He's actually helped me a lot and given me support on trying to start up a website and everything.
Awesome.
And yeah, he's a great guy. His material is amazing. He's top notch. He's been a contractor. He's got great tips from all over the spectrum as far as classroom work and project management and everything. Yeah, he's a go-to guy. You should check him out.
All right, sweet. I'll hit him up as well, because the idea is we're going to get a few of these interviews lined up to try and help people share their stories, because no one talks about our trade. Like, there's no one sharing stories. There's no, like, it's all kind of, we're busy doing the job. We're busy putting power in the homes. We're busy doing that stuff, but we're not really busy sharing and for like getting our voice out. And this is how we get found. Like, I've been doing a podcast, you connected with me, and here we are now doing an interview. We didn't plan that. It just kind of like step by step, the road reveals itself. So that's kind of a fun journey that I like to kind of bring people along and get people involved. So your website was thetradeguys.com?
Thetradesguy.com.
The Trades Guy, so with the S there. Cool. So I'll leave it at that. And thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll talk soon.
All right, awesome. Thanks for having me, James.